All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for attending our talk today. I would like to introduce Thomas first, who will give the talk today with me together. My name is Jonas. Thomas is from Castleridge. I'm from EclipseSource. We are both consultants and service providers around tools and IDEs. But today we talk here in our role of Theia project leads. So we're both Theia project leads, and we would like to show you some of the great new things in the Eclipse Theia ecosystem. We actually focus on news since last year because we had a news and noteworthy last EclipseCon 2. And it was actually pretty hard to fit all the stuff into one talk. It has been a very active year for Theia. So without further ado, let's directly jump into it. I will highlight some features and some news on slides first, and then I will hand over to Thomas, who will do some live demonstrations of features where it actually made sense. And then I will do a roundup at the end again. So this is a joint session. We don't have a big introduction about Theia. We hope most of you know what it is. As the title says, it's the next generation tool platform at Eclipse to build web-based tools. So it's a good migration target if you're looking for an alternative to your current desktop tools. You want to migrate them on a web-based stack and potentially run them in the cloud, then Theia is a good technology to look at. All right, without further ado, as mentioned, we have a lot to cover. I directly want to jump into the first news, and that's one of my favorite, and it's really a huge achievement. That's the VS Code extension compatibility. So you might know Theia is compatible with VS Code in the sense that you can actually use VS Code extensions. These are the extensions that you can install into an IDE. You can also use them in Theia. And to make this work, Theia implements the same API that VS Code provides. However, on the Theia side, we really have to implement that. This feature is available in Theia since a very long time. But if we look in the past, like 2 years ago, there was actually a pretty huge gap in terms of compatibility. That means new API was not supported in Theia, which made it not possible to always use the latest version of VS Code extension. Now, the community saw this, and actually a lot of people started to work together to close this gap. I will talk about the details of this endeavor more in another talk later this afternoon, but the great news that I announced today, we are actually now fully compatible with VS Code. Like literally everything is there except, and you see that here in the bar. So 1 year ago, we were like almost 2 years behind. And as of today, we're still a little bit behind. That's 1 month. And we will never close this gap because we have to wait until VS Code publishes something to implement that. But this is really, really, really great news. And Thomas will demonstrate some of the features that actually contributed to this compatibility too. The next thing, feature that was contributed this summer, also very important, especially for using Theia in an industry field. You can connect Theia to several VS Code extension registry. That's kind of connected. So VS Code extension registry is the place where users can select extensions to be installed into their tool or IDE. So why do you want several of those? Imagine you have you build a tool for your internal developers, and you have some extensions that are kind of proprietary. You don't want to publish them to the internet and let other people use them, but you just want to provide them for your own developers. And with this feature, you can actually set up an internal instance of extension registry and allow the developers, okay, they can get the regular stuff from the internet, but they also can get your special extension. Also, this contributes to security. You might work in a field where you don't just allow developers to install whatever they want, but you somehow want to scan things or approve certain extensions. This is also very well supported in Theia. Another feature that has been started around this time last year, but is now fully released and part of Theia, is the new implementation of the RCP protocol. Every Theia-based application consists of a front end and a back end, and both parts communicate using RPC. Now, typically, performance is not so much an issue there if just messages are sent back and forth, like, I don't know, users clicked something or, I don't know, triggers a command. With one exception, if you work with very big files and these files have to be transferred to the client to display them actually in the editor, that can be a performance issue. And for that reason, and that was actually originally kicked off by an idea from Thomas, and then several different people collaborated on that. We completely re-implemented the RPC protocol in Theia. And the good news is it's not only a little bit faster, it's actually 30 times faster. And we see here the stats. So file access is really fast now, which really contributes to the performance. And the nice story here is, so this was the original goal, was to make the file access faster. But now this protocol also contributes to the performance of other users. For example, Trace Compass, as Matthew announced yesterday, they're using this protocol and they also benefit from this performance speed up. You know. All right, an initiative that is currently going on, started only 2 months ago, is around startup performance. So community see we want to improve here. And again, several people from different companies are working together here on these initiatives with several technical contributions. For example, the backend bundling that was contributed earlier this summer makes the backend startup a lot faster. We optimize the front-end startup. We show the window earlier, even if not everything is fully loaded, that the user already sees the window and can interact with that. There's currently a PR open to load the localization data lazily and more to come. But we already have great results. On the right side, we see the front-end and back-end startup time. Of course, that heavily depends on what machine you do it, right? So this just that you see the relation. So we are currently only take around 60% of the original time for a startup, right? So it's really a lot of improvement, and this is still ongoing. And now the last feature that I want to show on slides before we dive into the demo is what we call remote SSH support. So this is about supporting connecting Theia to a remote container. That means, and this container can actually run anywhere. It can run on your machine, but also somewhere in the cloud. And what this feature enables, that you can actually upload the back end of your tool to some container and then connect to this container via the browser. Now, I actually have a slide that visualizes this, but I realized there is a talk directly after this session in Silchersaal given by Mark. So if you're interested in that, I highly recommend joining this talk with more details. All right, and with that, slide boring part is over. I would like to hand over to Thomas to show us some live demonstration of even more features.
All right, demo time. So let's hope everything works. The first thing I want to show you is support for notebooks in Theia. And for those not familiar with the concept, notebooks are basically documents that have both markup text and some code in them. And we can execute that code. For example, run this. It should run it. Wait a sec. Yeah, first demo doesn't work. Fantastic. How do I do this? I kill everything and I start from anew. Demo effect, thank you. You can see the super fast startup, but I'm blaming it on the plugins I have installed. Okay, here, yes, we need to allow access to that. So, once again, and you can see the markdown text, and you can see the code, and I can run that code, and it still doesn't run the code. I have no idea why that is happening. But anyway, the idea would be that you have those, here it's a Python notebook, right? And you can run this, and when the result of the runs can become, as you can see here, part of the document again. And I would basically have shown that we can edit these cells and add new cells, and we can change this to markup, etc. And it's also print my own hello world, which doesn't work right now for reasons unknown to me at this time. So what's the state? The first thing we focused on was the Python notebooks, because that's the most common use case, right? And you can expect good sometimes, except right now, good working order for that kind of scenario, but if you go into other notebook scenarios, your mileage may vary. Then the next thing I want to show you is, yes, I have to open the workspace now. Hope I'm getting the right one. Yes, there we are. Is support for the test API, and it allows you to add so-called test controllers, and test controllers are basically components that can find tests in the workspace, and then you can execute those tests and see what's happening with them. It all starts with the Test Explorer view. Some of you might remember that very similar from VS Code. And what we see here is we have the sample test controller. That's one that's contributed in the examples that we have in the repository. And this one's contributed via Inversify. It doesn't have any tests by default, but we can actually run a command, which I wrote, add some tests. And you can see you have some tests here, right? The other one is Python, which is from the MS Python, and this one is the Playwright extension, also by Microsoft. And in this case, we see the Playwright tests that are in the Theia source code. And we can drill down here, and eventually we'll see that here it waits a bit because it discovers the tests dynamically as we drill down, right? But we can also, there's a refresh button for it because not everyone probably supports this, and you can just ask it to reload all the tests from in the workspace. We can navigate here. For example, if we want to go to that source folder, we can click on here, and it will bring us to the package or the file explorer. Or if we actually have are on a file that has tests in them, let's take that one, and we have to click here. Then it will take us to the file, and it will show us the location of the test. Right. What else? Yes, so we have a couple of tests, and we would like to run them. The test sample controller actually has some code that lets you run tests, and it will arbitrarily, you can see now here we have a test run, and it chooses arbitrarily some tests, and it will fail or pass, or like this one was skipped. We have two skipped ones. It's arbitrary. It's a random. Right, we haven't had any failed ones, so because I need a failed one to show the demo. There you go, we have a second test run. What we can look at is, for example, if I select this one and I open the view called test output, I can look at what this test outputs to the console, for example, right? And if I eventually have a failed one, or this one is, if I have a failed one, there's a second view I can look at test results, right? And here you see if you have a failure, an exception, or something like that, it will show up here. This code is actually real, so if I run the, where do we have it? Some tests here from the Playwright tests. You can see that it's going to queue the tests here, and eventually the tests will start run, and they will succeed, hopefully, or some will fail, and we can look at the output from them. We can go here to the cancel the test run, and once we're done with all our tests and we want to clear everything, we can get rid of them here. So the next thing is something we already had last year, but we've improved it a lot, so we're going to have another demo for that. And this is the detachable windows. This is like Draw.io. It's an extension of the extension or OpenVSX Marketplace, and we can take this window outside. Let's make this a bit smaller, if I can, please. Yes, thank you. So this is now in a secondary window. The first feature I want to show is that this actually works in the Electron case. We ran into a bug in Electron with the context of JavaScript execution when you close the window. You don't want to know, but anyway, we had to rewrite a bit of Theia to use context isolation, which means that the JavaScript in the browser window can't use the Electron API anymore, but that's a good thing because that's the recommended practice for security reasons anyway. So that's two birds with one stone. The other thing that works correctly now is if let's say we make this red and we click the close button, we're actually correctly asked if we want to save or not. We can say cancel, or we can say don't save, and then when we open it, it's actually still white, the change hasn't taken. But if we do it again, and this time we choose save and open it, you can see that the thing is now red, and so the save has actually taken place. So what's the next one? Let's go back to the other one. It's about tab previews. Let me open a second file here. Yeah, normally when you, no, this is already in the wrong one. I never know if it's Workbench. No, it's not. It's Work Window tab, or there you go. So the tab bar, usually when you hover over an editor, it just shows you a little hover with the path of the file that's open. And we've added 2 new modes to this. The second one is enhanced, and if you go to an editor, it basically shows the same thing, but in a nicer way, right? But if I go to something like a terminal, it can actually show you useful information about it. Here's the process ID, and we have the command line that was used to start the terminal. The third mode is visual, and in this mode, a widget can add any HTML that it wants, basically, you name it. For text editors is actually a miniaturized view of the editor contents. And if we don't have such a visual view, it falls back to the enhanced mode. There are not many widgets which offer the visual mode right now, but you could imagine, for example, the test view. We could do something that shows a pie graph with the percentage of failed tests or passed tests, right? So what else? Yes. Enhanced tab behavior. So here in the tabs you see I'm already in the wrong mode because I tried everything before and it worked, but I didn't set it back. Okay. So this is the thing. Normally when you look at the tabs of editors, you can see the whole file name, and that's okay because you know exactly what you're editing. But if you start opening new editors, pretty soon here we can see 3 editors and everything else is hidden. And you have to fiddle with that, see, I can't do it, with that scroll bar to actually move between the different editors. So the idea was to make this more like browser tabs are handled in normal browsers. So what we do is we shrink the tabs to be the same size, and we only show a part of the name. The other nice thing about this, if I want to close multiple editors and I'm starting here, you can see that the close box keeps moving, right? So if I want to close 5 or 6 editors, I have to always aim here. But if I go to the other mode, I can just, it always stays in the same place, and I can just close those really fast. If there's enough room, the tabs, they're all the default size, right? But I can put this to 300, I can make it into 30, but I think for me 200 actually works pretty well. And as I keep opening new editors, the tabs shrink to the minimum size, but if you can't fit all of them at the minimum size for the tabs, you get a drop down here, and which you can use to navigate between the different editors, but you also get the scroll bar back, even though it's fiddly. All right, and that's it for the demos. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we get back to the slides, please?
Yes.
All right, let me click through the demo parts. All right, I would like to continue with a quick community update, just some news about ecosystem, health of the ecosystem. So since last year, we actually announced that last year we introduced a new type of release. Traditionally, Theia has a monthly release, which is great of bringing new changes and new features fast to the adopting projects. But based on the feedback, especially from projects that adopt Theia on a larger scale, we learned there's also a need for a slower release cadence, where we actually focus more on stability. We pre-publish versions so that people can test and then adopt new versions in a slower release cycle. And that's what we call the community release. That's published every 3 months since 1 year. So we have we've done 4 successful releases now. And that's very well adopted. And many projects have now that actually built tools and IDEs based on Theia have switched to adopt these community releases. Also, they are kind of a compatibility anchor because quite a few technologies integrate with Theia, like for example GLSP, Spratylenium, CG Cloud, and all these additional frameworks now ensure compatibility with the community release, not necessarily every month, but every 3 months. So it's kind of a, in a sense, it's a little bit like the release train used to be in the past. We are very happy to have a stable, but also very diverse community. So we really get contributions from a lot of different companies. There is a stable set of core contributors, I would say, but also companies that do occasional contributions. So it's really a lot of diversity, and we're really happy about the contributions we receive. And all the features that we see today wouldn't be possible without that. We have strategic adopters and initiatives, and we have a very efficient open source collaboration, and that's really something that I've never experienced in my career. There are literally features where different companies work together and join to implement one feature in an open source way, and some of these companies are really competitors, but they agree, okay, this is something we both need in the platform, so let's join effort, and it's really, really I'm really glad to see this type of collaboration here. Now, in terms of adopters, this was 1.5 years ago. More and more companies start to adopt and contribute to Theia and also put their name on the website. If you're in this room and you do something with Theia, it's very easy to get your logo here, right? You just have to open an issue on GitLab and upload the logo, and then you're here. So with the latest edition of Killer Code and Samsung, and this list is ever growing. However, this is probably, so this list is not complete because we are actually aware of projects that adopt Theia that are not here. There are some ways to see that. Yeah, we would wish that more companies would actually even place their logo here, but this list is already pretty impressive. All right, I've talked a little bit about open source collaboration today. I would like to tell more about these collaborations, but this didn't fit in the talk today. So there will be another talk given by me in 4:15 today, where I invite you to join if you want to learn more about how this collaboration happens and how certain features, for example, the VS Code compatibility, how that was actually realized in the community. And with that, final topic would be a look into the future. So what's currently cooking, what do we expect that we maybe talk about next year at EclipseCon or similar conference. So I'm super excited that there is some work or has been started on implementing a live share-like feature. So you might know live share from VS Code, where you can actually connect 2 IDEs and then collaborate in one IDE. So there's currently work going on, and we hope to see something there soon, which is really cool. Another thing that I personally find very important is there's a first POC for a backend-less Theia, which basically means you can run Theia just in the browser. You don't need a backend. It's basically just a static web page, which sounds trivial, but it removes a lot of overhead when you want to host your tools in the cloud, because you don't need to set up a cluster, you don't need to pay for that, you don't need all this infrastructure of login. It's just, you give an URL, it's just a static website. And now that many technologies, like related technologies like Langium, GLSP and so on, are actually running natively in the browser, we actually have the technical possibility to build tools that just don't have a backend anymore. And the third thing, and that's an initiative that is currently discussed a lot, you might know, so Theia, by tradition, is actually a platform. So the purpose is that to enable you to build your own tools. But since almost 2 years now, Theia also publishes a tool called Theia Blueprint. That's an IDE that you can just download and use. It has always served two purposes. One, to provide a tool that you can just use, but also serve as a blueprint for you to look at if you want to build your own tool. And it's currently, because this has been stabilized a lot and improved a lot, and it's actually now, we believe, close to be ready to really be just the Theia IDE, so really a tool that you can just use. And we're currently in preparation and in discussion and starting an initiative here, so you might hear about this soon. Yeah, so this session I already announced. If you're interested in discussing ideas like the Theia ID or anything around Theia, there is an evening session today at 7:30 with the title Building Web-Based Tools with Eclipse, and Theia is one big part of that. So if you want to meet committers, contributors, discuss with the community, join this session. It's an informal session. We can discuss whatever you are interested in. And again, I would like to remind you of the session from Mark right after this talk in the room right next to us about the remote SSH support feature. And the very final announcement is there is an event upcoming where you can learn much more about Theia, called TheiaCon. That is a virtual event happening on November 15 and 16. It's 2 days, but on every day we only have 3 hours of session. The reason is we want to be very time zone friendly, and it's in Europe, it's in the late afternoon, so that also North Americans can join their morning. And it's virtual, so you can just join the conference from your home, from your office. So make sure you get registered there. There will be a lot more detailed talks about Theia, but also about technologies that somehow interact with Theia. So it's really a very interesting event, and I've had a look at the agenda, so I'm really looking forward to this. So get registered. Yeah, and with that, please evaluate the session. We hope you liked it. You can do that in Swapcard. And with that, I would like to open it up for questions, if there are any. And I think we have a mic there. Yeah. Are there any questions?
I have a very silly one, but did you know that it actually works in Trace Compass too, your tab bar previews? Yeah. I just found this, so I've written it. Why wouldn't it? What GL? There are so many things that can go wrong. Okay. It is. Sorry, man.
Excuse my naive optimism.
It didn't fail.
I think there was a question over there. So do we have what?
Release date.
No, so the question was whether we have a release date for the Theia ID. No, we currently don't. This is something, so this is kind of the topic after EclipseCon, because we have been, many people in the ecosystem have been busy a lot about preparing EclipseCon. I would personally expect some sort of announcement this year. Will probably be an announcement like a beta version or something. But if you're interested in using Theia as an IDE, my recommendation is really today, just download Theia Blueprint. You can use it as such. And if you miss anything there, or if you find anything there, we're very interested in feedback.
Yeah. I've actually been using Theia Blueprint as my main IDE for about 2 months now. And there are some rough edges, but it's doable. I didn't switch back to VS Code. So. There are a couple of things. First of all, if you need to do anything special, like if you need to change anything, remove anything from the UI, you can't in VS Code, because they're basically a one-company shop, and you can fork it and maintain that fork forever, or you can have a modular IDE where, for example, if we don't want a workspace, we don't have a workspace, you can remove that. You can add a toolbar, you can remove that. You can pretty much make your own IDE with the Theia packages in it that you want. So as soon as you get out of the VS Code API, the VSX API, you can't do anything in VS Code, right? The second thing is the question: if you really, if you're a competitor to Microsoft, you have to ask yourself if it's strategically a good idea to depend for your tools on them. That's a question everyone needs to decide for themselves. And the third one is more philosophical. If you're into collaborative open source rather than one company doing everything, then that's the third reason for me. But maybe Jonas has some others.
I think it was a pretty good summary. But I think when thinking about this question, you also always have to differentiate the use cases. Do you want to build a tool or do you just want to use a tool, right? Because the answer might be also different one depending on what you want to do. Yeah. We actually recently published an article that discusses the decision between using Eclipse Theia or CodeOSS, which is the open source project underneath VS Code, as a platform for tools. Because I really think you have to stick with one use case if you discuss the difference. It's a different thing than if you just use an IDE to be used. Yeah. So yeah, one more thing that I would like to mention. If you still want to use something open source as a platform, and that's CodeOSS, the discussion goes a little bit different because there are actually, in the meantime, quite a few things that are available in VS Code but not in CodeOSS. Like, for example, live share, remote SSH support, and so on. So there was a question here.
What would be the difference between the Theia blueprint and the IDE for just naming?
You mean between the Theia IDE and VS Code then?
No, between the Theia blueprint
Yes.
and the upcoming Theia IDE.
Okay, that's a very good question. Actually, I would say Theia Blueprint evolves into that, right? So that's why, so the current thing that we do is we onboard many users, or as many users as we can, to use Theia Blueprint to actually have a field test. Okay, what are we still missing to just call that the Theia IDE? But the final thing, then once we fix the things that we're currently not happy with, would essentially be a rebranding, right? Yeah. You mean the existing desktop IDE? Yeah. So it's the question whether our plan is to replace the existing desktop IDE. Yeah. Yeah. So yes. Can do you want that? So I don't think there's the plan to replace something. But the reason why Theia exists is that I think there's a necessity for a modern platform where you can build web-based tools, and that's not possible with the desktop IDE. Now, whether something is replaced or not, that really depends on the adopters and users. We just make an offer. We say, okay, if you want to go to a modern technology stack, here's what you can use. It's an alternative that you can use. Because I think many people are looking for that and want to know, how do we build our next generation of tools in 5 years and so on? Because I think one thing that is pretty clear, there are still a lot of application based on Eclipse, and a lot of people are still using the IDE, but will that still be the case in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years? Somewhere in the future, there's a date where projects need to migrate depending on their life cycle, right? And Theia is an alternative way you can migrate to.
If I may, I think what's going to happen to the Eclipse IDE, desktop IDE, is going to be dead. If you know what I mean. COBOL has been dead for 40 years going, so yeah, exactly. But it's the best thing that can happen to a technology where people who come to it newly probably wouldn't start with that, but it's not like it's going away as long as people find value in it, and that can be a long time.
Basically going to replace what intended to replace.
If you're asking us, of course. If you're asking the Eclipse IDE guys, probably not.
I think one.
But we do not tell people what to do. That's the way the Eclipse Foundation works. You come together and you do not have people telling you what to do. As you come together and what you want to do, you can. They're not prescriptive. It's up to you.
And I think from it. So you had another question? So can you sing it? Cool.
The server side, with taking Java application that's beyond the web interface, can you also take this?
I'm not sure whether I understand the question. Sorry.
You put Java in Theia.
Yes, you can. So The language support in Theia is based on the language server protocol, same as used in VS Code, for example. So if you have a language server for Java, you have support in the editor, and you can compile and run any language. So that's independent on the backend part. Then yes.
And the language server of Java is based on Eclipse JDT, right?
Yeah, it's actually an Eclipse instance headlessly. Yeah.
Ironically.
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand there is now compatibility with the Visual Studio Code extension, with this slightly 1 month delay, which is a great achievement. The question is, as a user, should I be worried about the license in terms of these extensions? Are there any extensions that maybe are meant or allowed to be used only in Visual Studio Code and I should not be using it there?
Yes, so you actually have to worry about that because there are some extensions that indeed are not allowed to use outside of VS Code. I'm not aware of any license that forbids something, but rather only allows exclusive use in VS Code. But I'm only aware of examples that are directly published by Microsoft. I'm not aware of any other exceptions. Do you want to comment on that?
I would like to add that if you read the license agreement, Microsoft doesn't say it's coming after the user that installs Microsoft Python. It says don't distribute with Python, or don't distribute with these things. So we would never be allowed to distribute. But if you install it on your own, like, that's up to you and your legal team.
So one more question, then I think we're out of time. Please.
In theory, I can take Theia, add my own add-ons, this is part of my application, and recreate a node ID package to distribute to my developers.
That's exactly the purpose, yes.
Yeah.
And from a license point of view, that everything is exactly prepared for that. Yeah. But that's the original use case. That's bullseye what it is built for. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, Thomas, and enjoy the conference.